Welcome to the Mental Health Multiverse.
We're your hosts,
HB
and LB.
We'll be breaking down some of our favorite movies and TV shows as they relate to mental health, self-healing, and overall wellness, while also breaking stigmas, shedding light on misinterpretations, and helping you understand yourself a little better.
If you're also on a healing journey and enjoy pop culture, stick around. Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Mental Health Multiverse. This episode is going to be a little different than our usual episodes.
Yeah, so as many of you know, so far we've been breaking down the movies and stories of empowering Disney princesses or heroes or heroines. And in some of these episodes, we've touched on the complications of representation and how some of it is problematic, but it also felt important at the time, that kind of stuff, telling stories of very specific cultures, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So today we wanted to talk about Pocahontas, and while she is considered a Disney princess and is definitely an empowering Disney character, we also know that the Disney movie is nowhere near the true story of Matoaka. So, out of respect, we aren't going to do our full traditional episode.
Yeah, after some discussion between us and feedback from some Indigenous folks and friends, we understand that it's really hard to navigate the nuance of this colonized, whitewashed story. We had talked about maybe bringing on an Indigenous Disney fan to discuss the movie. I even posted on my stories about it and had some lovely people referred to me. But then once I started discussing it with these amazing Indigenous folks, I received the feedback that it could be seen as asking for emotional labor. And we fully and completely recognize the Disney-fied character there's so much nuance there because these people don't want to talk about something and, create a discourse where they will be perceived as supporting the character, even though she has been inspiring for so many.
Totally. Yeah. It's not easy to separate and compartmentalize the Disney movie and the actual story. But as delicately and with so much respect, we would still like to share what we personally like about the Disney character and empowering takeaways that we got from the movie.
Yeah. So we rewatched, right? Always do a rewatch right before we talk about these.
Yes.
And I hadn't watched this movie since I was a child. That's something that I realized while watching it. This was one of my favorite Disney movies as a kid. And as soon as the opening song started playing, the Virginia Company song started playing, I was hit with a wave of nostalgia. My body was just like, shoo, you have been transported back to being 6-year-old Heather. Because I had the Pocahontas Disney book on tape, and they would play the music and like read the story and that kind of thing. And I used to listen to it like right before I fell asleep, and I completely forgot about that memory until the music started playing, and I was like, whoa, whoa. But if we're going to talk about things that we like about Pocahontas, I do think that something really incredible about her is that like she doesn't take herself too seriously. Like she's silly, and I don't remember that from being a kid. Like I don't remember her being so silly and adventurous and stealthy. One thing, like the way she follows John Smith around without getting caught, like that requires lots of stealth. She's fearless. She's doesn't even flinch when guns are being pointed at her. Like, what the heck? And she just has so much courage and understanding, which is something that her father says to her courage and understanding. So those are like, if we're going to talk about things that we do like about her as a character, that would be my sort of list, which I think, is why I loved her so much as a kid and just really wanted to be her. I really wanted to be Pocahontas.
Yeah. I really love that she's super connected to her intuition. Like that's definitely not something I noticed as a kid. And very similarly, I haven't watched this movie since I was a child. I know we had it on VHS, but it was never, I don't know, it was like never really in my rotation. In this most recent watch through, I just really, what really stood out to me was her connection with her intuition, with her gut, with her dreams, and all of that. Like, especially as a survivor of like emotional and mental abuse, it can be really hard to, or at least in my experience, it was really hard to learn how to trust myself again and trust my gut, especially when my entire life I had constantly heard all the reasons why I shouldn't, why I wasn't good enough, why I was just a bad person, a bad kid, and having all of this quote unquote evidence to support why I shouldn't. So I think her connection with her dreams and her intuition is really inspiring even to me now. As well as her ability to like navigate, and this is reminding me of our Moana episode, but like her ability to navigate the struggle of choosing like the right life path. She has a whole song about what's around the river bend and wanting to make sure she's choosing the right thing, the right way to go. But I think this character shows us that no matter which path we take, we'll always end up where we need to be, and what's meant for us like won't pass us by. How like every part of the river, no matter how many streams and diversions there are, it'll always find its way back to the ocean, which I think is pretty empowering and encouraging, especially for my period of life right now where I'm like, I don't really know what's happening, but it's fine. We're chugging along. And I also think very similarly to Mulan, this character does a really great job of staying true to her heart and sticking to her guns and standing up for what she believes in. And I think that's pretty cool. And I know from a lot of my friends who do like her as a Disney character, those are some of the things they like about her as well.
Yeah, and I think it is so tough, like even just saying like these are things I like about her
I know.
because it's like there's just so much nuance surrounding the fact that this movie even exists. And one other thing that happened in this rewatch that I didn't realize until adult just when we watched it again was that John Smith was voiced by Mel Gibson, which just completely adds to the problematic nature of the movie. Like, ooh,
Mhm.
that is that blew my I honestly that blew my mind. Like I had no idea and I was like, wow, we should just never watch this movie again, basically. Like I should not be supporting this movie at all.
I know. It's so tricky. Yeah. Even when I was saying all these things, I was like, and I just want to like make it very clear that this is a character, but it's also the question of like, can you talk about the character without in the same way like disrespect Matoaka,
Yeah.
and that's not our intention. I hope that is not our impact. And we've talked
Mhm.
a lot about intention over impact and stuff, but like truly, 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 I just want to like make sure, hammer home that like our intention is to respect the true story of Matoaka. And when we're talking about this version of Pocahontas, we are talking about this super Disney-fied character that's like we're trying to separate it as much as we can. But of course, we can only do that. We can only go so far with that. She is and has been an empowering character to so many. And I know a lot of people that look up to her while also acknowledging all of the complications and problematic stuff that surrounds that character. So,
I talked about this briefly in the Esmeralda episode. If you want to go back and listen to that about the research that was taken to create Pocahontas, and the the people who were involved in the production, unlike with Esmeralda, where there were no Romani people involved, um, there were there were Native Indigenous people involved in the production of Pocahontas who now regret that involvement,
yeah.
um, which is also, you know, it's such a bummer.
I know. And I know a lot of our episodes are like, yay, Disney and like, yay, Disney princesses and stuff. And I don't want this episode to sound like a bummer or anything, but we are also here to address the nuance, and as much as we talk about empowering things that we get and the empowering parts of all the characters, I think it's also important to have like a realistic conversation, because and that's just the reality of the situation.
To end on maybe like a light note, her animal companions, so
Oh my
sweet,
God, so cute.
so cute.
She's a raccoon. And I love because I grew up with pugs. I forgot that there's a pug in this movie.
Yes, Percy. And
Percy.
I was, it's funny. I was going to bring this up because you were talking about in Cinderella how there's this like anti-cat propaganda. And
Yeah,
I was like, well, Pocahontas is the anti-dog propaganda, but Percy ends up being good in the end.
he
And
does. He does. And I love that he's treated like a little prince. There are a lot of cute elements to the movie. Also, the animation. The animation is like beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah.
I think that wraps up all the things I wanted to say about this character and some empowering takeaways I got from the movie. And yeah, any other notes, HB?
No, that's it from me.
Alrighty, sounds good. Well, thank you for listening,
Yeah.
and being on this journey with us. We will talk to you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mental Health Multiverse podcast and for spending time with us, HB and LB. Special shout out to our musical composer, Little HB.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, feel free to share it with others, post about it on social media, leave a rating and review, or become an exclusive Patreon member to see bonus and additional content.
To stay up to date on all things MHM, you can follow us on Instagram at Heather Bodie and at littlebin_notbroken, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see our faces and watch some fun bloopers. You can find all of these links in the show notes.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.